Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Monday, the 6th of July. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about Australia and Fiji have signed a defence pact to counter Chinese growth in the Pacific. Turkey has arrested critics and opposition leaders ahead of the NATO summit. And UK Reforms Party Farage has faced fresh misconduct allegations. So firstly, Australia and Fiji have signed a new defence and security pact this week, deepening the military cooperation between Canberra and Suva. The agreement comes as China has expanded police and infrastructure ties across the Pacific Islands in recent years, and it makes Australia's clearest move yet to lock in its role as the region's primary security partner. So what? I think it's likely, well, it's almost certainly part of Australia's push to try and keep China out of the region. China's made some pretty significant footholds in the Pacific Islands, particularly around Vanuatu. Fiji here gains security guarantees and defence backing, but it also risks getting pulled in to a wider rivalry that, it didn't start. China and Australia, also New Zealand and the US, have been battling it out pretty hard in terms of soft power in the Pacific for a number of years now. And it's almost certain other countries in the Pacific, such as PNG, the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, basically all of them at this point, face significant pressure for similar deals. PNG in particular have made like a security deal that included them getting an NRL team. For those who don't know what that is, that's a rugby league team in the Australian competition. So, a bit of interesting soft power play there. But yeah, it's almost certain this will continue. China is definitely not going to give up its push into this region. And next, Turkish authorities have detained several opposition figures and government critics in the days before this week's NATO summit. The arrests extended a pattern of prosecutions widely seen as targeting President Erdogan's political rivals. Ankara denies any political motive, but the timing lands right as Turkey hosts its NATO allies. So what? I mean, it's unlikely to be coincidental, right? Erdogan likely wants to show off his domestic control while hosting Western allies and ensuring that the country comes across as strong in the face of these partners. NATO partners will almost certainly stay quiet. The alliance is going to outweigh unity over pushing back on Turkish democratic backsliding. This has been going on for years. Erdogan is firmly entrenching himself in control of the country, and other NATO partners aren't really going to say anything. Their biggest fear would be that Turkey would leave NATO and side with their eastern rivals such as Russia and China. Turkey already plays a pretty interesting kind of relationship here where it's part of NATO but still buys weapons from Russia. Well, it did pre the invasion of Ukraine, but it definitely plays a middle ground in that relationship. And I think it's highly likely that opposition figures face rising legal risks heading into any future elections. Erdogan has said he will not stand again, but he's going to try and ensure that his regime stays in power for as long as it possibly can. So he's not really going to let anyone talk shit in the country. And lastly, Nigel Farage, the leader of the UK's Reform Party, is facing fresh misconduct allegations reported this week. The claims add to a string of controversies that have followed Farage and Reform as the party continues to poll strongly ahead of the next general election. The allegations could test how much scandal Reform's voter base is willing to absorb. So what? I think it's almost certain that opponents of Farage and the Reform Party, particularly within the media, are trying to amplify this to, slow Reform's polling surge before any possible general election that could be coming up in the next few years. And Farage has weathered pretty similar misconduct allegations, so I don't think this is going to be too damning for him. He similar to Trump, he brushes them off as, well, if you could, you would too. But, some of these are pretty crazy. He allegedly was given like £5 million worth of gifts in kind, I think they call it, where, people pay for things for you. So, not a small amount of money. But it does possibly complicate any future coalition talks if Reform's vote share keeps climbing and the scandals kind of fall away. I think the most analysts look at the most likely coalition being between Reform and the Conservative Party. But yeah, it could get pretty complicated if Reform is, faced with significant scandals. But anyway, that's been the Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Sue!